Hello, today we are going to find out about this Cretan mystery and we are going to explore the Anemospilia site. Anemospilia, it's a tricky word to say and it's an even trickier word to spell, so start learning it quickly. We're going to be here for about 4 or 5 weeks looking at the building, thinking about the 4 skeletons, what they were doing, why they were there, and how they died. It's a pretty cool site. It's a possible site of human sacrifice in ancient Greece, so it's a really interesting one to be thinking about. As we go through, I want you to have your Minoan Temple Mystery Workbook open as well, and we are going to focus in this short video on the very first question. The first question is, what was this building? What type of building does its floor plan? Facade. Facade means the outside of the building. What does it look like? And its architecture. What does that most clearly? What does that most closely represent? But before we get into it, let's have a look at where it is. So we have Crete. Last lesson we had a look at where Crete was, just so you're aware. It's proximity to Greece, right in between Greece and Turkey. This really quite big island, it's a really important trade route. So in ancient times, people would hate to sail straight across open water, and instead they would hug that coastline. So you can see that in trying to get from Greece to this southern side, the Persian Empire, you needed to make sure that you could essentially island hop. So lots of their wealth, the Cretan people, of the Minoan people, came from trade. We are going to be thinking about this site here, Mount Jukta Sanctuary. Mount Jukta Sanctuary is another name for the Anemospilia site, and you can see that name that we learned yesterday and the palace complex that we had a look at, Knossos, is really quite close to where we're thinking about. So, Mount Juktus, that's the name of the mountain. This is a view of it. It's this really prominent mountain. There's actually a lot of myths associated with Zeus here. And if you want to get into the mythology, I've popped up on Connect a whole module on thinking about Theseus and the Minotaur, and also mythology in general. This is another view towards Mount Juktus. You can see that it's quite a beautiful mountain range. And this is the Anemospilia site itself. So the site is about halfway up the mountain. You can see that it consists mainly, to this day, of these 3 main rooms. 1, 2, 3, with these nice thick walls and entrances to each of those rooms. You can see it here, halfway up the hill, and noticing that there is actually a path that extends back into ancient times that weaves its way up this mountainside. This is a topographical map so that you can see these 3 buildings, and we can also see really clearly here a corridor as well that connects all of those 3 buildings. The archaeological site has, they've tried to preserve some of the important finds that they've discovered here under these perspex glass windows. A better view of that preservation. Some really cool, well-cut rocks here. Sorry about that, let's turn this off. There we go. Okay, and this is an overview of the site itself, and really clearly you can see those paths that wind their way up the hills. You can also see We have 1, 2, 3 rooms. We call them the West Room, the Central Room, and the East Room. This is called the corridor, and we also have possibly the remains of 3 more rooms. So let's have a look at that in reconstruction. So you can see here that this is possibly more of what it actually looked like, this reconstruction of the building. Within the site, this is what we found. So archaeologists, as they first go in, find this skeleton lying face down. They've dropped a pot in front of them. Not quite sure, there's no other signs of, possible causes of death, except that the surrounding building has collapsed in on them. We have two people actually on the ground here, and one person on this sort of raised bench up here. This is not actually a person, this is a sculpture. Probably a wooden sculpture with ceramic feet. In here we have really big storage jars, in here we have small storage jars, and in here we have no storage jars, but we have this random person on this bench. And this is what we're going to try to unpack, because this could be central to what the purpose of this building was. So, just going back a slide. This bloke here, who is a man, he's carrying this vase, and this vase is what we call Kamara's ware vases, which is a libation jar. Now, a libation is a sacrifice, but it's a liquid sacrifice, so you can sacrifice wine or oil or blood as well. And you can see on the outside of this vase is a bull. You can see his beautiful big horns there. And this is the vase as it's been put back together again, reconstructed. The bull was a really important figure in Minoan society. They had the annual jumping of the bull festival that you might have seen in the PowerPoint yesterday. They have bulls in lots of their different iconography on, painted on the walls and on pots. And we also have the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. The Minotaur is this half bull, half man thing who devours people, who's pretty cool, and he comes from Crete. Okay, so I want you to open now. I'm going to go back. Open now to your workbook. I'll just open that up for you here. Okay, so this is what you'll see when you go through your workbook. Originally, the site of Anemospilia was excavated in full in 1979 by 2 Greek archaeologists, Yannis Sakalarikis and Effie Sakalarikis. I think they're brothers, maybe. I actually don't know the relationship, but we can find out. And they found this building in Crete. So take some time now to have a read of what they found. You can pause the video. Okay, so the building itself, after the very first day's labour, they were able to draw out all 3 of these rooms, the West Chamber, the Central Chamber, and the East Chamber. And they mapped out where they found the bodies as well. Note we've got this altar and statue here. And this is our reconstruction. So, thinking about what this image looks like, what this building looks like, I'm going to show you in the workbook a series of images and floor plans of other structures that we know what their purpose was in Minoan culture. So have a look at these. So firstly, we've got the plans of the Minoan tombs. So basically what we need to do is think, does this look like a Minoan tomb? Well, Minoan tombs sort of have this shaft going into them, and they have this big open space in the middle. Or they are circular tholos tombs, or they have a combination of both, this circular and square room. But really we have big open spaces for the tombs. Does that look like what we have here? The next one we have are the plans of the Minoan villas. Now, these villas seem to be quite, I'd say, haphazard. We have lots of different storage rooms here. Sometimes they're circular, sometimes they're sort of in this rectangle, but they're not really particularly even. There's no real sense of architectural thought, probably, in the layout of these villas. Does it look like a villa? Okay. Then we have our Minoan palaces. So we actually had a look at the main Minoan palace yesterday, which is the palace at Knossos. So that's this one here. Remember, we pointed out our wells just at the left-hand side of it. And we have a huge amount of different storage rooms, all with different functions. Does this look like our building? Okay, we have two more. The next one is a plan of a Minoan sanctuary. Now, our sanctuary, you can see there appears to be a corridor with 3 separate rooms. We have 5 separate rooms here and a corridor. Corridor and a few separate rooms. So we're starting to see some similarities. And then finally we have a shrine. Does this look like a Minoan urban shrine? So we have a series of different rooms, but they're all a bit all over the place, aren't they? Lots of different things going on. They seem to be more or less attached to existing houses and to other places. As you can see, we've got the street and then a small little shrine. Okay, so what I want you to do is write down your answer now to what was this building? Based on the floor plans that you can see here, what type of building does its floor plan, its facade, remember that means the outside of the building, and the architecture most closely resemble? Now, Sakalaricus suggested it was some sort of temple because 1, it faced north, and all buildings of religious significance face north, and 2, it's surrounded by this temenos. So a temenos is a sacred wall, a sacred enclosure, and we do see remnants of this enclosure around our particular Anemospilia site. And so he thinks that it has some sort of religious significance. In order to judge that, let's have a look at some other examples of religious architecture. So here we have examples of our tripartite shrines. Tripartite shrines have 1, 2, 3 main buildings, and with an elevated building in the middle here. You can see these really cool horns sticking up here. These horns, well, we're going to find out what they are a little bit later on, but think, what do they look like most to you? What do they resemble? We find them at our Anemospilia site, and so it could hold the key to what the meaning of this site. Okay, so I will leave you now to think, what was this building? Please write approximately 1 teal paragraph, and I need to see some use of evidence and examples as well. Thank you.